A group of orphan kids including Calvin, Murph, and Reg have been inseparable since they were little kids. All three of them grew up in the same orphanage, the Chesterfield Adoption Home. Life there is not easy, and fun moments are rare. Whenever they get a little free time, they run straight to the basketball court. For Calvin, basketball is more than a game. It is his biggest dream. He wants to play in the NBA one day. The only problem is that he is only 5'4", and everyone keeps reminding him of that. The boys often get bullied by Ox and his gang, who also live at the orphanage. One day, after being teased again, Calvin decides he has had enough. He challenges Ox to a basketball game. Calvin tries his best, but he loses. To make things worse, Ox humiliates him by ripping his Sixers shirt. That night, Calvin watches basketball on TV and quietly admits that his real dream is not just to play in the NBA. He also wishes for something deeper, a real family. This emotional moment is cut short when Stan, the greedy director of the orphanage, orders the kids to get ready for work. The children are taken outside the Staples Center to sell chocolates to fans who are there to watch the Knights play. Calvin and Murph manage to sneak a look at the game, but they're disappointed when the Knights lose. After the game, Calvin sees Coach Wagner leaving and gathers the courage to speak to him. To Calvin's surprise, the coach is kind. He gives the boy tickets to come watch the next game on Sunday. Calvin is beyond excited. It will be his first time watching his favorite team live. The next day, families visit the orphanage hoping to adopt a child. Calvin and his friends already know how it will go. The younger kids are always chosen first. As expected, no one shows interest in them. After the families leave, Sister Teresa brings in a box of donated items. Inside the box is an old pair of worn sneakers. Calvin tries them on, and they fit him perfectly. He notices the initials MJ written inside. Right away, he believes the shoes once belonged to his idol, Michael Jordan. Ox hears about the sneakers and tries to steal them. As a result, Ox throws one of the shoes up into the air, so it gets stuck on some wires. Now no one can have them. That night, Calvin cannot sleep. He needs those shoes back. During a storm, he and his friends climb a tree to reach them. Just as Calvin grabs the shoe, lightning strikes the wires. The electricity travels through the metal and hits the sneakers, sending Calvin falling to the ground. Somehow he survives, and even though it was dangerous, he is happy because he got the shoes back. On Sunday, Calvin wears the sneakers to the Knights game. After the match, a presenter named Frank announces that one lucky fan will get the chance to challenge Tracy Reynolds, one of the Knights' star players, to a quick one-on-one game. The winner is the person sitting in row 14, bench number 2. That person is Calvin. He runs onto the court, ties his laces, and faces Tracy. At first, Tracy laughs and does not take him seriously. But then Calvin scores, and scores again. Tracy's smile disappears. He starts trying for real, but Calvin still beats him. The crowd goes wild. Even Calvin does not understand how he is playing so well. Seeing an opportunity, Frank offers Stan $7,500 so Calvin can play with the Knights for one day. Stan quickly agrees. Later, Calvin tells his friends that the only reason he can play like that must be the sneakers. Unfortunately, Ox overhears everything and begins planning to steal them. On the night Calvin joins the team, he learns he was only invited to attract media attention. The team is losing badly, and the coach is desperate. Calvin suggests a smart move, and Coach Wagner decides to put him in the game. Nervous, Calvin rushes to the locker room and puts on his lucky sneakers. The moment he steps onto the court, everything changes. He plays with confidence and skill, scoring point after point. The Knights turn the game around and win. After that night, Calvin became an official member of the team. He prepares for his first trip with them, but Stan reminds him that as a minor, he cannot leave without his guardian's permission. Stan controls his contract, so Calvin has no choice but to trust him. On the plane, Coach Wagner asks Tracy to mentor Calvin. They will even share a hotel room. At the hotel, Calvin is amazed by everything. He has never experienced this kind of life before. Tracy, slowly starting to respect him, shows him how to order room service before heading out for the night. Calvin's dream is finally coming true, but deep down, he still wonders if the real magic is in the sneakers or inside himself all along. But the fun quickly turns into a disaster. Tracy comes back to the room and is shocked. Food wrappers are everywhere, and Calvin is lying on the floor, holding his stomach in pain. Tracy had planned a special night and even brought a woman named Janet with him. Embarrassed and angry, he tells Calvin to leave. Instead, the sick boy runs to the bathroom. Janet walks in, sees how bad Calvin feels, and immediately switches into caring mode. She decides to help him recover, completely ruining Tracy's plans for the evening. Later that night, Calvin tries to say sorry. Tracy brushes it off and says they should just forget about it. Before sleeping, Calvin asks Tracy to pray with him. He gently asks if Tracy wants to ask God to bless his parents. The question hits hard. Tracy quietly admits that his parents are gone. Calvin feels guilty for bringing it up. He knows better than anyone how painful it is to grow up without parents. The next morning, Tracy looks terrible. He barely slept because Calvin snores louder than a truck engine. Before the game, Calvin innocently tells Coach Wagner about the night before. Tracy immediately gets in trouble. The coach reminds him that bringing women into the hotel and staying out late breaks team rules. One more mistake, and he will be suspended. Calvin quickly realizes he caused this problem. He apologizes, but Tracy is furious. He tells Calvin to stop interfering in his life and to focus on his own business. Despite the tension, the next game is incredible. Calvin plays like a star again. Even against top NBA players, he scores 25 points. The crowd goes wild. His fame keeps growing. With his new money, Calvin buys electric scooters for his friend back at the orphanage. For the first time, he feels like he can give something back. Tracy slowly becomes Calvin's biggest role model. Calvin copies his clothes, his walk, even the way he talks. Soon, other players are asking Calvin for autographs. The small boy from the orphanage is now a celebrity. One night, Murph wakes Calvin up and jokingly asks what it feels like to be famous. Ox overhears and once again tries to steal the magical sneakers. This time, Stan catches him. Ox reveals the secret about the shoes, giving Calvin his power, but Stan warns him to stay away. Weeks later, Calvin is in the hotel room playing video games with Roger when he notices Tracy leaving. Tracy says he is going to buy allergy medicine and sleeping pills so he could survive Calvin's snoring. After he leaves, Roger mentions that Tracy does not like getting close to people and has issues with his family. That is when Calvin realizes it's something strange. Tracy once said his parents were dead, but Roger hints that his father is still alive. Calvin decides to follow him. Tracy is driving, singing loudly in the car, when Calvin suddenly pops up from the back seat. Tracy nearly jumps out of skin. They laugh and turn the ride into a singing contest. But soon the mood changes. Calvin asks why Tracy lied about his father. He says he would give anything to have his own parents alive. Tracy does not have a good answer. At the pharmacy, Tracy tells Calvin to stay in the car. It is almost midnight, and he cannot risk breaking curfew again. Inside, Tracy gets distracted while flirting with the pharmacist. Without paying attention, he grabs sleeping pills instead of allergy medicine. On the drive back, Tracy starts feeling sleepy. His eyes close at the wheel. Calvin panics and takes control of the car. He cannot see over the dashboard, so he places a spare tire on the seat to sit higher. With only minutes left before midnight, he drives wildly through the streets, causing small accidents along the way. Somehow, they make it back just in time. Calvin hands the keys to the valet, as if nothing happened. The next day, Roger tells Tracy the full story. Because of the chaos, Calvin will have to sit on the bench for the next game. On the plane, Tracy thanks Calvin for saving him. If not for the boy, he would have been suspended. Back at the orphanage, reality hits again. Calvin struggles to study geometry for an upcoming test. No matter how hard he tries, the numbers do not make sense. Suddenly, Murph rushes in with big news. Several couples have come to meet Calvin. They want to adopt him. For a moment, Calvin feels hope, but then he realizes something is wrong. Stan has been controlling everything. When confronted, Stan claims he is protecting Calvin from greedy families who only want his money. He promises to choose the best candidates. Hours later, Calvin discovers the truth. Stan has purposely selected the worst couples possible, so Calvin will lose hope and stay under his control. As long as Calvin remains in the orphanage, Stan keeps managing his money. Heartbroken and angry, Calvin leaves and goes straight to Tracy's mansion. The house is huge and beautiful. Calvin walks through every room, amazed by the life Tracy lives. When Tracy notices Calvin's serious face, he asks what is wrong. At first, Calvin pretends everything is fine, but he cannot hold it in anymore. He is tired of being controlled, tired of being alone, and finally ready to tell someone the truth about what is happening. Calvin is not only hurt because Stan tricked him about the adoption families. He is also stressed about school. Geometry is driving him crazy, and he is scared he might fail his test. When Tracy hears this, he decides to step up. Instead of laughing at the problem, he turns the mansion into a classroom. He grabs some paint and starts drawing huge triangles all over the walls. He explains angles by comparing them to basketball shots. He shows Calvin how the ball travels in a curve, how the backboard forms shapes, and how every great shot follows a line. For the first time, geometry starts to make sense. But things quickly get out of control. Calvin grabs a brush and adds even more paint to the walls. Soon, the lesson turns into chaos. Paint flies everywhere. Calvin smears the windows. Tracy throws paint back at him. Within minutes, it becomes a full-on paint war. Buckets are tossed, clothes are ruined, and both of them are covered from head to toe in bright colors. You can barely tell who is who. Laughing, Calvin calls Murph and asks if he can come over. With Tracy's permission, Murph joins the fun. The three of them, now completely covered in paint, jump into the pool to wash it off. For a moment, everything feels simple again, just friends having fun. The next day at the park, Calvin opens up to Murph and Reg. He admits he does not want to be adopted by any of the families Stan introduced him. Murph thinks about it and says maybe those families were never meant to be. Then he says something surprising. Maybe Tracy should adopt him. Calvin likes the idea, but he is unsure. Tracy does not even get along with his own father. How could he be ready to be someone else's dad? Trying to fix things, Calvin secretly brings Tracy's father to the mansion. He hopes they will reconnect. Instead, it explodes. Tracy is furious when he sees his father and tells Calvin to take him away immediately. The plan fails badly. Back at the orphanage, Calvin tells Murph he is done dreaming about adoption. But Murph says one more couple is waiting. The Boyd family has come all the way from Bel Air just to meet him. This feels different. This feels real. Stan starts to panic. If Calvin gets adopted, he loses control of the money. He goes to Ox and asks if the story about the magic sneakers is true. When he realizes Calvin's talent depends on those shoes, he creates a plan to make one last big profit. On the day Calvin goes to lunch with the Boyds, Stan convinces him to wear a brand new pair of sneakers to look more impressive. Before leaving, Calvin asks Murph to hide the magic shoes somewhere safe and protect them no matter what. Murph promises. Lunch with the Boyds goes well. They tell Calvin that tomorrow they will complete the adoption papers. He will officially become part of their family. For the first time, Calvin sees his dream coming true. But back at the orphanage, trouble begins. Ox and his gang corner Murph and demand to know where the sneakers are. He refuses to tell them. They drag him to Stan. Stan grabs the only photo Murph has of his mother and threatens to burn it. Desperate to save the picture, Murph reveals the hiding place, the basement. Stan locks the sneakers in his safe. Then he goes to a bookmaker and places a massive bet of $100,000 that the Raptors will defeat the Knights. Without the magic shoes, Calvin cannot win. Meanwhile, Tracy finally decides to fix his own family problems. He meets his father, and they go out for a drink together. It is a small step, but it matters. Before the big game, Tracy tries to talk to Calvin about something important, but they are interrupted by the Boyd family. Calvin asks what Tracy wanted to say, but Tracy changes the subject. Just 20 minutes before tip-off, Calvin gets a call from Murph. He learns everything about Stan's plan. Without thinking twice, Calvin rushes back to the orphanage with Reg and Murph to stop him. The game starts, and as expected, the Knights are losing badly. At the orphanage, the boys capture Stan and tie him to a chair. Reg threatens him with sharp chess pieces until he gives up the safe's password. Ox appears, and Stan orders him to untie him. But Calvin reminds Ox that they're all a team, even if they fight sometimes. Stan never cared about any of them. Ox finally switches sides. He gives Calvin the sneakers. The kids jump onto their electric scooters and race toward the Staples Center. Stan frees himself and calls for help. Security guards chase the kids, but they dodge cars and speed through the streets. One guard even falls into a lake during the chase. Murph falls behind while avoiding traffic, but he keeps going. At one point, Calvin drops the sneakers and a guard almost grabs them. Suddenly, Murph appears and saves them at the last second. When Calvin reaches the arena, Stan is somehow already there waiting for him. Calvin knocks him down with a scooter and runs inside. The crowd erupts when he steps onto the court. Within seconds, he starts scoring. The Knights quickly catch up to the Raptors. Hope returns, but then disaster strikes. When Calvin has the ball, the entire opposing team surrounds him. In the struggle, his sneakers are torn apart. They are destroyed. Calvin freezes. Without the shoes, he believes he cannot play anymore. That is when Tracy steps forward and tells him something that changes everything. After his magic sneakers are destroyed, Calvin puts on a regular pair and makes an important announcement to the team. No matter what happens in this game, it will be his last. He wants to stop living like a celebrity and finally enjoy being a normal kid again. Hearing this, his teammates feel emotional, and everyone becomes more determined than ever to win together one final time. As the clock counts down, Calvin chooses teamwork over glory. Instead of taking the final shot himself, he passes the ball to Tracy. Tracy takes a deep breath, shoots, and scores a perfect basket that secures the victory. The crowd explodes with cheers as the Knights win the game. Afterward, Calvin makes a difficult decision. Even though the Boyd family offered him a new life, he decided not to go with them. He believes that following his heart is more important than chasing a perfect dream. He says goodbye to Coach Wagner and his teammates before returning to the orphanage, where Murph welcomes him with a huge smile. A few days later, Tracy arrives with surprising news. The Knights will now sponsor the orphanage because Stan disappeared after losing his bet. Then Tracy shares something more personal. He says Calvin is still searching for a father, and he is searching for a son. Maybe they could become a real family. Murph watches quietly, thinking he will be left behind. But Calvin asks Tracy to adopt Murph too. Soon, the three of them leave together as a family. And weeks later, Reg also finds a loving home. Tracy officially becomes the father of both boys, giving them the family they always wanted.